My daughter screamed, "You contribute nothing," as she threw my things out she didn't know. The suitcase hit the porch with a heavy thud, the sound sharp and final. "You contribute nothing." Amber's voice sliced through the cold Kentucky night, louder than the clinking of glasses inside, louder than the carol playing faintly on the stereo. Her words rang out in front of the entire family. Neighbors too, their eyes shifting, some pretending not to look, others openly watching. She stood at the doorway, arms crossed, fury twisting her features like she was ridding the house of a pest. My coat, worn but clean, lay on the steps, half unzipped, sleeve tangled. Beside it, the little box I had wrapped earlier that morning for Emma, my granddaughter. A book. Just an old book, but one I had loved as a child, with notes I had written inside the margins for her. Amber pointed at it like it was an insult. "This is what you bring to my daughter? A crusty old book? You humiliate me in front of my in-laws with this trash?" I opened my mouth, gently, to explain it was Emma's favorite story, that I had spent 3 nights reading it again, marking the parts that made me cry, that made me hope, but Amber wasn't done. "You eat, you sleep, you complain, you do nothing. You do not even try to contribute to this household. I am a single mother, working non-stop to give Emma a future, and you just sit there like an extra mouth with no purpose." The people inside kept their wine glasses lifted mid-air. No one stepped forward. Not Uncle Roy, not Amber's best friend Hannah, who knew me since Amber was 3. I caught my reflection in the window cardigan buttoned wrong, eyes too small from tears I had refused to shed for months. Amber shoved a white envelope into my hand. "I bought you a bus ticket, one way. You'll be at Shady Pines by morning. They have nurses, food, you will be fine. And this house will breathe again." Emma was the only one who moved. She crept out from behind the staircase, tiny and thin in her new green holiday dress, holding her book like it was something sacred. Her voice trembled. "Grandma, please just go for a while. I will figure something out. I promise I will bring you back." I crouched, knees aching, and cupped her cheek. I whispered, "Thank you, my girl." I kissed her forehead and turned. If you feel justice deserves celebration, smash that hype button. Let us keep stories like this alive, echoing far, far away. Your support helps us bring understanding and love to those who deserve it. Thank you so much. Keep listening. I picked up the suitcase myself. The handle was frayed. The porch light flickered as I stepped down, careful not to slip on the icy step. I did not look back, not at Amber, not at the house I had scrubbed, cooked in, rocked Emma to sleep in. Not even at the Christmas wreath I had made last week from the pine cones I picked with Emma by the park. A neighbor muttered something, maybe a protest, maybe a blessing. I could not tell. The wind took their words and scattered them like ashes. The bus station was 5 blocks away. I walked. The cold bit through my coat, but I kept moving. Not because I had nowhere else to go, no, that was what Amber believed. But because I remembered something she had forgotten. The deed. It was back in 1996 when I matched the lottery numbers and quietly used that money to buy our house in a quiet Kentucky neighborhood. This gives a precise year and clarifies the purchase. I paid off my debts, bought a house in a quiet neighborhood, and put it under my name. Amber was only 12. She thought my late husband left it for us. I never corrected her. She moved in with Emma when she lost her job, said they just needed a place to stay for a year. That was 6 years ago. Slowly, she changed the furniture, the locks, even the address on the mailbox. She changed the story too, made it seem like I was the guest, not the owner. Tonight, she tried to erase me completely. But she forgot who signed the papers, who paid the taxes, who had the original title sealed in plastic, buried under winter scarves in the old chest in the attic. She forgot that I remember everything. And tomorrow, she will remember what she never knew. When I sat on that frozen bus bench with my suitcase at my feet, fingers still curled around the envelope Amber had shoved into my palm, my mind did not race forward, it slid backward. Years peeled away like wallpaper, one season at a time, until I was back in the kitchen of our first home with the old linoleum floor and the smell of crayons on the walls. Amber was 7 when her father died. The collapse at the mine made the evening news. I got the call at 3:42 p.m., right as the 3rd grade bell rang. I remember because I made the mistake of answering the phone in front of my class. I had been a teacher for 15 years, but that was the only time I ever left a room without saying goodbye. He had been a quiet man, not tender, but solid, dependable. Amber adored him. When I told her he was gone, she did not cry. She just went to her room and closed the door. I sat outside that door until midnight. Raising her alone was not easy. I was not perfect. I said no more than yes. I taught her to cook, to sew, to memorize Shakespeare. I pushed her to study, to earn what she wanted, to never rely on anyone who could vanish under rubble. Amber called me strict. Her friends said I was too much. But I knew the world would not hand her anything gently, and I wanted her to be ready. She was 16 when she started seeing him. A boy 2 years older. He wore leather jackets in 90-degree heat and had a laugh like broken glass. I smelled beer on his breath the first night he shook my hand. I told her no. Told her I had seen that kind of man before. Told her they start by skipping dinner and end by breaking your ribs. She told me I was paranoid. She said I was jealous of her happiness. By the time she was 18, she had dropped out of community college and moved in with him. She stopped answering my calls. I left voicemails every Sunday, just in case. When she came back 6 months later, her cheek was purple, her lips split, and her belly swollen. She said it was an accident, that he had just been angry, that I would not understand, that I never understood. I begged her to stay. She refused. A week later, she lost the baby. The hospital called me, not him. She had listed me as her emergency contact. I rushed there with a bag of clean clothes and a sandwich. She would not eat. She would not speak. When I touched her hand, she turned her face to the wall. That night, in the hallway, she whispered, "You did this. You made me leave him. You made me stress out. You made me lose my baby." I froze. I did not know what to say. I wanted to scream, to grab her shoulders and remind her it was he who put her in that bed. He who bruised her spine and broke her heart, not me, never me. But she had already decided. I was the villain. It was cleaner that way. Easier to hate the mother who warned you than the man who crushed you. From that day forward, Amber wove a story. A tight, sad, convincing story. She told her coworkers that her mother had forced her to abandon love. That I was cold, controlling, resentful, that I never accepted her choices, even when they made her happy. And people, oh, they believed it. She told the neighbor that I insulted her during pregnancy. She told the church ladies that I refused to help her with diapers. She told Emma's teachers that I had always been unkind. The lies stacked like bricks around me, forming a little wall that made sure I was always outside looking in. I never corrected anyone. I could have. But when a woman says her mother ruined her, the world nods. It is a popular story, and I had no audience willing to hear another. So I became the bitter old woman in the background of her narrative. The relic, the cause of pain, the one people whisper about at cookouts. I kept every birthday card Emma ever drew for me, tucked them in a folder under my mattress. Crayon hearts, stick figures, "I love Grandma" in crooked letters. Those were the only proof I had left that I was ever anything else. Sometimes I would hear Emma ask Amber why I looked so sad all the time. Amber would say, "Because guilt catches up to everyone." That is how you erase someone. Not by throwing them out the front door, but by rewriting every room they ever lived in. She was no longer just the daughter I raised. She became the author of my exile. I was not allowed to eat at the dining table anymore. At first, Amber said it was because there was not enough space. Emma had started using the table for her art projects, she said, and it was just easier if I had my own corner. So they moved a small folding tray into the laundry nook. I ate there, near the dryer, on a chair with one short leg and a pillow to balance it. I learned to eat quickly, quietly, no crumbs, no mess, no questions. I was not allowed to use the stove either, after I forgot to turn off the burner once. I apologized, offered to write reminders, but Amber shook her head and said, "It is just safer if you use the hot plate." So I cooked my meals in the garage, next to the washing machine, with the door half open to keep the smell from reaching the house. My bedroom was the old storage room at the end of the hallway, no windows, no heater. Boxes of old baby clothes and broken holiday decorations towered around the mattress on the floor. I had one lamp, one outlet, and a towel to block the draft under the door. I did not complain. I kept my slippers beside the mattress. The walls were thin. Amber kept my bank card in her wallet. "It is easier this way," she said. "You do not really need it. I will handle the bills." Every now and then, she gave me $10 for shampoo, or bus fare, or laundry. If I asked for more, she would narrow her eyes and say, "You act like you are entitled to luxuries. That is rich, coming from someone who contributes nothing." She called it managing my finances. I called it erasure. Then came the worst of it. One day, she handed me a flyer. "Mrs. Donnelly down the block needs help cleaning out her basement. You should go." I looked at her. "You want me to clean someone else's house?" Amber shrugged. "You always say you want to feel useful. Prove it. Earn something instead of just taking." So I went. I scrubbed mold off old tile, hauled out rusted cans of paint, sorted through boxes of magazines and dead mice. Mrs. Donnelly gave me $25 and a banana. I thanked her. When I got home, shirt soaked in sweat, Amber was in the kitchen with her friend Linda. They were sipping wine, laughing about something on the phone. I passed behind them, heading for the garage. Amber lifted her head and sniffed the air. She made a face. "Good Lord, what died?" Linda laughed. Amber pointed at me. "Oh, wait. That is just my mother coming home from her new side hustle, helping the neighbors dust their ghosts." I stopped. Amber waved her hand. "Go shower, please. You smell like a corpse in a trash bin. Do not let people think I adopted a homeless woman." I nodded, went to the garage, washed my arms and neck in the sink. My hands trembled from scrubbing someone else's floor. That night, when they were asleep, I opened the old wooden chest I had kept since Amber was a baby. Inside, under my wedding veil and my husband's service flag, was a blue folder creased, faded, but intact. I pulled it out and unfolded the contents. The deed. Still in my name. I had kept the original title tucked away in a sealed envelope just in case she ever tried to pretend I was powerless. The same deed I received in 1996 when 6 random numbers bought me a house and a second chance. I had signed it at the courthouse in my best dress, hands shaking, heart racing. I had taken Amber out to dinner that night and never told her where the money came from. She was 12. She thought we were lucky. She thought her daddy's pension finally came through. I let her believe it. I let her move in when she lost her apartment. I let her stay when it turned into years. I let her strip the wallpaper, repaint the kitchen, replace the locks. I let her act like it was hers. But it was mine. It had always been mine. And now they called me a burden, an embarrassment, a smell. I held the paper close, my thumb pressed to the seal. "They call me a leech," I whispered, "but leeches do not buy houses." And for the first time in a long, long time, I slept with my shoulders uncurled. It started with a phone call I was not meant to hear. Amber had left her door half open while she paced back and forth, phone pressed to her ear. I was folding Emma's socks in the hallway. It was my usual chore fold, wash, stay out of sight. "Yes, the house is mine," Amber said briskly. "No mortgage, no lien. I just need the loan approved quickly." There was a pause. Her voice softened, then sharpened. "What do you mean, proof of ownership? I live here. It is my name on the mailbox. My kid goes to school from this address. Who else would it belong to?" Another pause. Then she lowered her voice, which always meant she was about to lie. "My mother? She is senile. I manage everything. Her signature is just a formality." The phone clicked off 5 minutes later. She stormed out of her room, nearly bumping into me. She froze. "What are you doing?" "Just folding socks," I said. She narrowed her eyes. "Stay out of my business." "Of course," I said softly. "Always." The next day, I saw a document on the kitchen counter. It was a property ownership verification form, one the bank required to confirm who legally held title of the house. The signature line at the bottom had my name, but it was not my hand. I had been a teacher for 3 decades. I knew my own writing. She had forged my signature. I did not say anything. Not when she tossed the form into her purse. Not when she went out that afternoon, in her too high heels and knock-off handbag, ready to charm her way into a 5-figure loan, using something that was not hers to begin with. What she did not know, and never dreamed of, was that my memory had grown sharper than ever before. I pretended to forget birthdays. I acted like I misplaced the remote, or confused the days. I played into her fantasy that I was fading, slipping, unimportant. It was a good disguise. It bought me time. That evening, she came home red-faced, breathing fire. Slammed the door, threw her purse onto the couch. "They want a notarized copy," she spat. "They said the signature looks off. Can you believe that? I am the one who lives here. I have paid every electric bill for 6 years. I stayed quiet. She turned to me like I had asked a question. "You are not going to the bank, do you hear me? They might call. You say nothing. You do not answer the phone. You do not show up. Do not mess this up." Then she leaned in, voice low and venomous. "You think signing a piece of paper 30 years ago makes you important, makes you the reason we have this house? Please. You did not build anything. You just happened to be holding the pen." I looked at her for a long moment. I thought about all the things I could say, that I bought this house with money I kept quiet about so she would never feel shame. That I had walked to work in snow so deep it bruised my knees to keep the electricity on. That I had gone without new shoes for a decade just to afford this roof. But instead, I said, "Would you like tea?" She blinked. "What?" "I was just going to make some tea." She scoffed. "Whatever." That night, I stayed up late after everyone was asleep. I opened the blue folder again, smoothed the old deed across my knees. I took out the business card from the man who had handled my original paperwork. His office was 30 minutes away. The next morning, while Amber thought I was at the neighbor's scrubbing tile, I took the bus downtown. I sat in the lawyer's waiting room for 40 minutes, with my hands folded and my scarf tied neatly. When Mr. Fallon came out, he smiled at me like I had never left. "Miss Victoria, my goodness, it has been, what, 2 decades?" "Close to 3, I said, "but I am afraid it is time I got back into paperwork." He nodded, ushered me in. We went over everything: the title, the transfer history, the forged signature, the inheritance clause I had tucked in back in 2003, naming Emma as beneficiary if anything ever happened to me. He leaned back in his chair, hands folded across his chest. "What do you want to do?" "I want to prepare," I said, quietly. He smiled. "I can do quiet." When I left, I had 2 copies of updated documents, notarized, one for my records, one in his office safe. Amber had spent years rewriting history in her head. She thought erasing my voice made me vanish. But I still had ink. And I was not finished writing. Amber always did love an audience. I heard her before I saw her laughing, dragging boxes down the hallway, phone perched in her hand, camera pointed just above her chin. "Hey guys, welcome back to another productive Saturday. Today we are finally decluttering this house. Out with the old, in with the new, right?" She had started live streaming a few months earlier, but ever since her clips started getting traction, she had turned our home into a stage. That morning, I was in the garage, folding laundry by the hot plate, when I heard her voice get sharper. "This?" she said, holding up one of my scarves. "This is what I am talking about. My mother has been hoarding junk since the 82nds. Look at this. Smells like sadness and mothballs." She flung it into a trash bag. The comments rolled in hearts, laughing emojis, fire symbols. She thrived on them. "Guys, you do not understand. I love my mom, okay? But let's be real, she is a toxic presence. She sucks the joy out of this place, like a parasite. A sweet-smelling, guilt-tripping little parasite." I stood still. The laundry pile dropped from my hands. My socks fell into the detergent bucket. She has done nothing but sit around and judge me for years. Years. I am done pretending. You all want real? Here's real. You cannot keep letting old ghosts haunt your space. You have to cut the cord, right? Emma peeked in through the side door, eyes wide. I shook my head once, firmly, silently. She disappeared just as quickly. Honestly, Amber said, tossing my books into a donation bin, the only reason this house is not in my name already is because the paperwork is stupid. You want to know how ridiculous it is? I literally had to fake my mom's signature last month just to get the bank to move on anything. Don't at me. I had to. She laughed like it was a joke, like she had not just confessed a felony to 5,000 strangers watching live. The comments exploded. My heart did not. It slowed. I stepped back into the shadows. Amber kept going. I mean, come on, what is she gonna do? Sue me? She thinks TikTok is a kitchen utensil. But one person in the house did know what to do. Emma. That night, she slipped a USB stick into my hand. I screen recorded the whole thing, she whispered. She deleted it afterward, but I saved it before she could. I stared at my granddaughter, 11 years old, and already wiser than the woman who birthed her. I held her face in my palms and kissed her brow. Then I called Mr. Fallon. The next day, I hand-delivered the footage, along with copies of the forged document, the original deed, and my notarized affidavit. Mr. Fallon watched the video silently, pausing only to jot timestamps. When it ended, he said, "She just handed us everything." We filed the complaint that afternoon, a formal allegation of document forgery, attempted fraud, and financial elder abuse. By Monday, the bank had frozen her loan application and flagged her account. By Tuesday, the first legal notice arrived at the door. Amber screamed when she read it. "What the hell is this? You reported me?" I looked at her calmly. "No, you reported yourself. I just made sure someone was listening." She tore up the paper and stormed into the kitchen, knocking over a chair on the way. I did not move. I had seen tempers before. I had lived through the mine collapse, through empty refrigerators, through funerals with only one bouquet. I had known real disasters. Amber's tantrum was just wind in a teacup. That night, she tried to go live again. But her account was suspended. Apparently, fraud and slander violate community guidelines. The next morning, a neighbor knocked on the door. "I saw your daughter's video," she said awkwardly. "I just want you to know, not everyone believed her." I nodded. "That's kind of you." She handed me a small tin of cookies. From Emma. Inside was a note, scrawled in blue marker. "I know the truth, Grandma. I always did." I pressed it to my heart. Amber had tried to erase me in public, but she had forgotten. The internet never forgets, and neither do I. By the time the letter arrived, I knew the pieces were in place, but I still held my breath as I opened the envelope. The letter came in a thick white envelope, stamped with the seal of the county court. Amber opened it at the kitchen table, still in her robe, coffee halfway to her lips. I was drying dishes in the corner. Emma had already left for school. She scanned the first page, and her face went pale. "This is a joke," she muttered. She flipped to the second page. Her lips moved silently. Her hand shook. Then she slammed the coffee mug so hard it cracked down the middle. "You pressed charges? You're suing me?" I folded the towel slowly, deliberately. "The state is prosecuting forgery. I simply submitted evidence." "You're kicking me out of my own house?" I turned to her fully, drying my hands. "It is not your house, Amber. It never was." She looked like she had been slapped. "You're unbelievable. After everything I've done for you." I held up one hand. "Don't." Her mouth hung open. She searched for something cruel to say, but the words would not come. Within a week, we were standing in court. Amber wore a blazer one size too tight, her hair piled into a bun that tried too hard. She cried on cue. She blamed the bank. She said she was confused, that she had only signed what her mother told her to. The judge listened, expression blank. Then came the footage, her own voice, played from the USB Emma had given me. I literally had to fake my mom's signature. The courtroom went silent. The judge raised one brow. "Did you just confess to a felony on the internet?" Amber tried to cry harder. No one moved to comfort her. My lawyer handed over the deed, notarized. The inheritance clause, the forgery complaint, the power of attorney I had quietly revoked a month earlier. The judge reviewed everything, then turned to Amber. "You have 30 days to vacate the property. You will pay restitution for legal fees, and you are barred from further attempts to claim ownership. Amber gasped. You can't be serious. I live there. My daughter lives there. The judge did not flinch. You falsified documents to seize property from your own mother. That house belongs to her. Amber turned to me wild-eyed. You're throwing me into the street? I am your daughter. I looked her in the eye. And you are an adult. You made your choices. 30 days later, she packed her things in silence. No live stream this time. No friends helping her move. Just cardboard boxes stacked on the sidewalk, a Craigslist truck idling by the curb. Emma stood beside me on the porch, holding my hand. We watched as Amber tried to stuff a broken lamp into the front seat. She looked up once, eyes wet. Not with apology, just rage, the kind that comes from being told no for the first time. She did not say goodbye. The local news ran a segment 2 nights later, a short piece on elder abuse and the legal precedent our case had set. They interviewed me at the house, camera crew in the yard. The reporter asked, "What do you say to people who believe family should forgive everything?" I smiled, soft but steady. "Guilt," I said, "is something people expect you to carry for them, but burdens are made to be set down. Gan nang latu kon guita gobo, kon me lamong na." And with that, I walked back inside. The door closed behind me with a quiet finality. Some endings do not require a bang, just a boundary, and the strength to hold it. The house was quiet again. Not silent, not hollow, just peaceful. The kind of quiet that came after a storm had passed and every broken branch had been swept away. 1 week after Amber left, I stood in the living room and ran my hand along the wall she once repainted in some trendy shade of gray. I smiled. Underneath, the original color I had chosen decades ago still peeked through in tiny cracks, pale blue, like a summer sky that never changed. I picked up the phone and called Mr. Fallon. "Ready?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "It's time." The deed was transferred not to me, but to a nonprofit I had followed quietly for years. Mothers Forgotten No More, a shelter and community home for elderly women discarded by their families. I transferred the title to the nonprofit Mothers Forgotten No More, with one condition. I would live here until the end of my days, and this house would become their sanctuary. But not as a lonely old woman in a rocking chair. I wanted to turn it into a place where no other mother would ever have to sleep in a storage room, where no woman would ever be told her worth had expired. We cleaned out every corner, painted the walls a soft gold, turned the garage into a reading room, the attic into a quilt workshop. Beds arrived, donated and sturdy. A ramp was built near the porch, a swing added under the tree. We opened the doors quietly, and women came. At first, just one Diana, a former nurse whose son had left her in a motel with $20 and a sandwich. Then came Clara, whose daughter moved away and never answered her calls. Then a third, then a fourth. Each of them came with nothing. Each left their shoes at the door, but kept their dignity. They called me Miss V. They asked me how to make soup from scratch. I taught them to sew again, to laugh again. And then, one afternoon in October, Amber came back. She stood at the gate, holding a plastic bag with clothes and nowhere to go. Her hair was flat, her shoes scuffed. "I just need a place to sleep," she said. "Just a room. I'll be quiet." I looked her over once. Then I smiled, the same smile she used to say made her feel judged. "You once said I smelled like a trash can," I said softly. "And this house, Amber, it does not take garbage anymore." Her mouth opened, but no sound came. I closed the door, not with anger, but peace. Some people believe in second chances. I believe in earned ones. 2 weeks later, Emma came home from school and sat across from me in the garden. "I want to live here," she said, "with you. Not just visit. I don't want to be around her yelling anymore." I reached for her hand. "Are you sure?" "I want to help," she said. "Like you help the others. I want to teach reading. I want to take care of people." She was only 11, but her eyes held decades. We filed the papers quietly. The state allowed it. Amber didn't contest. Maybe she knew. Maybe she had finally run out of excuses. Emma became our youngest volunteer. She taught Mrs. Diana how to use a phone again. She painted toenails. She read bedtime stories aloud to women who had forgotten what safety felt like. She told them, "This is my home. My grandma built it with love and revenge." We laughed at that. But she wasn't wrong. They came in 2s and 3s at first, shuffling in with bruised hearts and plastic grocery bags, eyes darting like they were intruding. Women in their 60s, 70s, even one in her 80s, who had been sleeping in a bus terminal for 3 weeks because her son's new girlfriend didn't want old ghosts in the house. They called it the Quiet House at first, then Victoria's Place. Eventually, the name stuck because it felt right. The House of Quiet Power, where no one had to raise their voice to be believed. We cooked together, real meals, not just toast and tea. We made Sunday soups from bones and roots. We baked biscuits that rose too high. We laughed when they flopped. Every woman brought something, recipes from lost homes, songs hummed under breath, stories they thought no one wanted to hear. Emma helped me run reading classes twice a week in the garage-turned-library. She printed out stories in big letters, circled words for our newest guests. She made name tags. She painted a mural of a garden blooming out of a cracked floor. On weekends, we held memory circles. No one had to talk, but if they did, we listened, really listened. One woman, June, said, "My daughter called me a curse, said her life got better the minute I moved out." She was sobbing by the end. Another, Maria, said, "My son unplugged my oxygen when I asked for the remote." She had not told anyone before, not even the nurse. Here, they told it all. Some nights we just sat on the porch, tea in hand, listening to cicadas. Silence wasn't scary anymore. It was rest. And Emma, sweet, watchful Emma, thrived. She kept a notebook called Kindnesses, where she wrote down every good thing she saw in a day. Mrs. Clara helped me braid my hair. Miss Diane saved me the biggest peach. Grandma didn't cry once. I did not always realize I had been crying. But the world outside kept spinning. Amber tried to restart her life. She made new accounts, tried to delete the old videos, but the internet has a memory too. Her clip was reshared on expose channels, featured in news reports about elder abuse. She lost her job, then her backup job, then the backup to her backup. Landlords Googled her name. Employers passed over her resume. Not a good culture fit, they said. She sent one letter, half apology, half accusation, said I had ruined her life for likes. I didn't reply. I had no followers, just family now. Months passed. Seasons changed. And then one evening, Emma lay curled in my lap on the porch swing, blanket pulled to her chin. The air smelled of cinnamon and rain. She asked, "Grandma, do you forgive her?" I brushed her hair back gently, finger combing the curls she used to hate. I stared out into the garden where our wind chimes caught the last bit of light. "I do," I said. "I forgive." She looked up. "Really?" I nodded. "But I don't forget." Emma blinked. "Isn't that the same?" I smiled. "No, sweetheart. Forgetting is letting go of pain. Remembering is keeping the lesson." I tapped her forehead. "Memory is power, quiet power." She nestled in again, satisfied. At the gate, there hung a new sign. Emma had painted it herself in deep red letters. "The House of Quiet Power, where those who never had to shout are finally heard." And for the first time in years, I felt heard. Truly, gently, unforgettably heard. Not with noise, but with truth. A year after the trial, the house was no longer just a house. It was a sanctuary, a recovery station, a place where memory learned how to breathe again. Each day, mothers sat at the kitchen table peeling apples, mending socks, talking about the children they loved and lost, not always through death, but through silence, betrayal, or slow neglect. Some wrote letters every week to sons who never replied. Others still used their child's name as the password to their email, even though those children had long since blocked them on every platform. I didn't ask them to forget. I taught them how to wear memory like armor, not shackles. Emma printed a photo and hung it in the living room. It showed hands wrinkled, smooth, dark pale, all reaching toward each other, joined at the center. Below the image, she wrote in thick, bold print, "There are mothers who never fade, only those we stop looking for." One early winter morning, just before the hail started to fall, a woman knocked on our door. She didn't ask for a room. She didn't cry. She just held a torn plastic bag to her chest and whispered, "Is there anyone here who still needs a mother?" I made her tea and showed her the empty seat near the stove. She sat, and 2 days later, she laughed a full, deep laugh, like a well unsealed. We never asked for donations. We accepted cookies, old songs, cheap perfume from the 60s. At night, the whole house glowed under the warm kitchen light, like an open hug that required no arms. Amber never came back. I heard she was renting a room in the suburbs, hopping between jobs, never lasting more than a month or two. Once, her name popped up in an online forum about legal identity restoration. No one responded. I didn't cheer for her downfall. I just felt balance. Justice doesn't always thunder. Sometimes it simply settles. One spring afternoon, Emma read a story to the women in the living room. It was about an old bird chased out of its nest by cruel crows. The bird wandered alone until it found other aging birds' wings worn, songs forgotten. But when they sang together, the sky paused to listen. When she finished reading, no one clapped. They just sat, eyes glossy, nodding slowly. Because everyone understood. We were not leftovers from someone else's story. We were the last lines written with memory, grace, and a silence no one could erase. Thank you for listening to my story. If it moved you, if it reminded you of someone strong, silent, and unforgettable in your own life, then please, help keep these voices alive. Subscribe to Grandma True Stories for more true tales from women who were never supposed to speak, but did. Who were supposed to fade, but endured. Who were forgotten, until memory found its way home. Because revenge has no expiration date. And wisdom? Wisdom remembers. Take care of your elders, or one day, their stories might take care of you.